Okay, hello everyone. Just setting the tune of the night. The title that came to me for tonight's episode is The Inner Awakening of an Outer World. And so I find that after a being has observed reality and has functioned within this reality structure comfortably within the system of life, they will, once attaining the fruits of their survival, come to certain moments where they're gazing at the world and they're beginning to notice the unknown. You see, a big reason why ancient traditions were like, don't get too lost into the games of the world, is because language can become an endless labyrinth. Before the world is multidimensional, it opens its eyes as one moment to the world. And then when it blinks, and then it begin to function more and more, and beginning to observe the biology, it's as if when a child is born, self-awareness has started, as if, how can I say it? As if we are feeding the world's information to a new machine that has never had that information and did not even exist to receive the information. So in some sense, I find like the structure of humanity is too unique. How we look as creatures is it's too unique, you know. It seems there is a design to the world, and even though we look at the cosmological argument and we look at like where did this design come from, we see it goes to the edge of our story and then no further. And beyond our story of life are the stories that we tell ourselves in the lights of our knowledge. The unknown is what is left to see. You leave behind your previous reality. And now how that occurs and whether it's you intuitively aligned as if like you're not thinking too much about deep stuff, but you're just being honest with life, and then you begin to notice things that many people are ignoring. And the dishonesty in society creates blindness. That's the purpose of lies. That is the purpose of um, it's as if on some level, because we don't have each other's eyes, we can never trust each other. But on some level, because we each have different eyes, we can see the same things through different views. I find that when studying the outer world, you either go within or you go without. That means either you try to build a space shuttle or something and go beyond the atmosphere and beyond the solar system, to try to see what's occurring. And scientifically, that endeavor has been met. But the truth is, once we feel our free will cannot move the outer reality, we begin to subjectively orient our value in our world, as if your emotion is a response of your consciousness that is, in some sense, like a light beam reflecting. One is reflecting from an abstract design, and the other is one is reflecting from an objective design and a subjective design. As if imagine like the light entered your eyes, but let's just playfully say that it didn't become neurons. Okay? That light suddenly, the moment it entered your brain, began reflecting in different ways, in two ways per se. And so what I mean by that is that at some point this creature became self-aware enough to, in some sense, develop a self-awareness. As if it was before just awareness being moved by nature. Suddenly it became the self. Suddenly it stood up and said, "Oh shit, that's the world, and this is me, and this is my world, and all that, the stories of the world began." It is not hard to realize that the method of approach suggests the finding. You know, think of it this way. I feel mysticism is what occurs at the highest, after the highest academic level. Let's say there's this professor, you know, and he's reached the highest point. He has gotten so many degrees and certificates that it's like he can build a house with them, you know. And so this person has reached the epitome, the peak of knowledge. You will see what is left is the unknown, and that's my point. That you begin to see, sometimes it's not that you just need to your whole life just know more and more. Sometimes it's to stop knowing what doesn't need to be there. Because honestly, I don't categorize my knowledge as memories in some sort of file cabinet, even though language gives me that display. The experience of myself I began thinking it's just the body. Then I began thinking it's just the mind. Then I began to realize it is the edgeless moment. And so the inner awakening of an outer world is the suggestion when a human being has reached enough, like you've lived, see, I'm not saying anything against work. You know, for me, I one of the most enlightening concepts, one of the first things I wrote, which definitely know it will be misread because I just didn't edit it properly when I published it. But it is one of those things where I have this concept of a great work, which is the result of the greatest effort of that objectively and subjectively confined to an energetic moment. What I mean by that is that the light enters your eyes and reflects into the subjective realm and the objective realm. The subjective realm is how objects have a meaning beyond objectivity. The objective realm is very obviously just the things that sensory perception relies on. You know, that means when you ask, where is reality? You know, like somebody says, "Come down to earth, man." What is that moment? What is that moment of being centered? And you see, it is a moment of being conscious enough not only of your design, but but also of the most efficient way your design can integrate with reality. You see, there's always this challenge. I think it's because we have two hemispheres of the brain. So in some sense, our life is constantly shifting like the waves of time on the shore of matter. Like it's as if in one aspect the chaos defines us because we seek a freedom that is beyond just structure. But in another aspect, the order defines us because we cannot know our freedom until it has a shape. So you see, it's as if I feel the way, the geometry, let us say, of the brain suggests a very profound it's as if the different parts of the brain that play are like an instrument where a melody is being created. That melody is our thoughts and our imagination and just the realm that language has come to, in some sense, be a king of. You see, if somebody tells me what's the most important thing to study, I will tell them language. If somebody tells me what's the most important thing to know, I will tell you the self beyond words. If somebody says, what is the point of just this whole existence? I will tell you it is an opportunity. That's it. I'm not going to tell you it is good or bad or like there's a heaven or hell. I'm just going to tell you there is an opportunity. And a part of your intelligence is looking at design, looking at things through design. You know that, I mean, for example, for me, like, you know how some people, like, you go to like a big grocery store or something, like supermarket or something, like, and there's samples and people take the samples to try the food even though they don't care to buy the thing that they're sampling. Similarly, I saw the designs of the physical universe, of the manifest universe, to be free imagination for a mind that is dynamic. You know, as if, like, imagine you sit down, like, imagine you're a writer, you sit down, you think of an idea, and then you write it down. Okay. Now, what I'm saying, it's like it's that moment where from the void, the hand of existence reaches out. From the unknown, intelligence shows us. And so the way it is, like, if you look at pretty much everything on this planet, nature goes towards integration. It's just natural. Okay. It's like whether we like it or not. I see ants, like, in, like, colonies. You know, I see bees honoring queens. Like, I think the best personality to give bees is English. You know. But for me, what I'm implying is that there's a sort of collective intelligence at work. For example, you have many organs in one body as one body. Do you see? You have five fingers connected to one palm in your right hand, you know. And then you see the symmetrical reflection of one part of your body in another part of your body, as if you're a creature of symmetry, but a symmetry of nature, not a symmetry of egoic perfection. Once you realize that the out what is considering that which is outer reality is actually occurring within. And when I say within, for now the mainstream can approach that idea as if, like, within your brain. Okay, you don't have to think anything, like, you don't have to associate any imagery to the nature of phenomena. Okay, but for example, like, as if, like, we're all climbing on this mountain, and then I found a certain way to look at the mountain that I think it's not about beliefs. That has been our confusion. You know, if philosophers sat among one another and, like, in some sense politicians spoke about the different ideas, as if, like, different ideas were people engaging one another, how it would occur. You know, you would see, like, we require to carry the banner of our DNA, okay? But at the same time, the justification for the moment can change as much as the moment changes. For me, it is about an experiential exploration of the unknown, you know, rather than an ideological acceptance of the known, you know? Imagine somebody tries for an hour and then convinces you finally after an hour of one belief. And then the guy's like, man, it took a long time for you to see what I was saying. And then eventually you tell the guy, it doesn't matter, man, because the next moment I'm going to have a different view, and my attention is not bound to the prison of language or the prison of image. My senses are a story I tell myself, yet this story presents itself as one moment. How my body moves, it's as if, like, I am this swimming pool, as if, like, imagine, like I jump in a swimming pool, but I don't get the experience of just the swimming pool. I feel as if I'm the whole swimming pool experiencing this person. And I've had very many moments, many. Like, it's just natural. I think it's within everybody. We don't notice it, you know, because we don't play the instruments of our mind properly, because we don't know our mind, because we never ask those questions that only we can ask ourselves. I remember I was watching these videos about Vedanta on YouTube and trying to in some sense see if uh, they're the heart of the speakers, trying to truly see like what they were saying, you know. And in that Vedanta, I came across like this idea, which was this fascinating idea of the bird, of the bird and the tree in some sense. But the story begins with the idea of two birds. Okay, so I'll tell you the story. Imagine a branch, a long branch on a tree, high above a tree, where there is a bird that is feeding its kids, and the whole time from the moment it wakes up, it just rushes. It just rushes to feed its children, build the nest, prepare the next task, objective oriented, finish this mission, go to the next mission, go to the next mission, mission, and like till the end of its days. And then above this bird is the same bird, but this bird is not moving, and it's as if it has never moved. And so this idea of these two birds were a certain metaphor for the intelligence of the moment. And what it implies is that there's an aspect of your intelligence that is silent and still, and it's like it's eternal because it was never finite. You see? And then there's an aspect of you which is incredibly temporary. And from the temporary is the opportunity of an eternal lifetime. You know? So, what I mean by that is that in honesty, one should ask, okay, why, if we are like eternal beings, if we were to look at the doctrines of like religion and Buddhism, if we were in some sense an unending presence of intelligence, and we came down to the material universe due to our misdeed or misalignment with some truth, you see that karma applies itself to those who already know what their wrong is. Okay? What I mean by that is that I wanted to actually give a talk called, which I don't often give those kind of talks, but I felt like I should, where racism occurs because of lack of self inquiry. So, racism is a result of the lack of effort to know what you are as a being. Because when you look at yourself as a being, you don't just identify with your body, you don't just identify with your looks, you don't identify with the thoughts and beliefs that you have accepted about how the world should be. You watch them as art, but art that is passing. For me, nature is art in motion, but on a vast scale. And sometimes I've wondered, what is this hand of intelligence that is drawing the story of our history as creatures? And I was looking for an individual in a point of intelligence. Sometimes for me, knowledge is can be simplified and made complex. The simple and complex are like just different lenses of perception, which reveals different depths, depths of field. So for me, think of it this way. If a person identifies with how they look outside their body, okay, they would judge others, let's say. But if a person identifies with how they look inside their body, which is like the blood and the organs and all that, you see, you cannot judge. That means if we were, this is a good idea for a sci-fi novel if anybody wants to get inspired. But imagine a world where the people were outside, like instead of like the way, like their skin was backwards, so you could see like the inside of their body outside of their body in some way, And I'm being playful here, but what I'm saying is, then you would have no judgment. You would see what we are considering ourselves is an idea, and this idea is kept in wakeful attention. You tell me, are there any racist people when those people are asleep? In deep sleep, not even in a dream state, like the person is just knocked out of sleep. You know, is there a racist there, or is there a racism there, or is there a victim there? You see what I'm saying? The world is kept by our attention to presence. And in my life, I've perceived various moments where the way the intelligence of the moment manifested to me, I could recognize the ratio of my ignorance and their ignorance. And then it's as if like the wisdom of the moment was the person who could see the moment as it was rather than as they thought it should. For me, it's like it's an opportunity of a lifetime to be around the life that you are. And those people who go on trying to destroy life, I mean, you have way too much time on your hands. You know, you have not found something that is more valuable than the reduction of a great opportunity. After billions of years, our species has climbed this far. And yet there are members of this species who don't see the big picture. They feel still it's okay to be violent. Still okay. It's like you say, like, why is the violent person, comes and says, makes a good argument, I'm violent because my ancestors were animals, and that's like, you can't judge my violence, Like, imagine the violent person said something like that, We would say the whole effort of self awareness was to make this animal's expression more efficient, and its efficiency occurs through working in reality where the resistance it has to its behavior, because honestly there's no reason to act if there is resistance makes you move, okay? And anytime you have resistance in your life, you go on a search without knowing it. It just occurs subconsciously. You try to see why life approaches you in that way, and you become conscious quickly, you know? And a way to become wise is to find the wisdom of the moment, to see the moment in a way where the ultimate victory has been achieved for consciousness. For me, it's like, this is gonna sound ridiculous, guys, but like, I've had moments where, like, I had a habit as a kid. Like, when I would see a tree, a big tree, I would just go put my hand on the tree, and it wasn't like I was like energy or something. Like, there wasn't any story there. I felt as if I am putting my hand on the shoulder of an old friend, of a creature that has existed a long time in this manifestation. Okay, because believe it or not, it's like a good life is like a good song. What that means is it's not supposed to be too short, and it's not supposed to be too long, and then you say, yeah, that was a good life, that was a good tune. You see? Now, how you study your inner reality is going to be very interesting. And so this is going to be something unique, which I don't often say in these. I mean, I often do, but not as often as I should. But I am a very huge advocate of writing, and I feel any human being who starts actually writing, they evolve their intelligence, because they begin to learn constantly of how to bring something that is unknown and behind their eyes into a known form in front of their eyes, and there's a coordination of a limb, with, in some sense, the whole intelligence of the system, as if like your brain and hand are going at work, you know. And in some sense, you think about yourself, you don't think of yourself as like separate parts. Isn't it strange, guys? When we think about the idea of ourself, we don't see it like an atom that has like, smaller parts or something. We say, I am me. What do you mean? It's just me here, and so we see we don't allow the deeper search into self, because if we did, only the wise could take responsibility for how the unknown manifests here. For me, like, sometimes the moments is not about people. Sometimes I don't wake up just thinking about people. Sometimes I feel there's an intelligence at work in this universal sector that is beyond people. It's happening here as if like this concert of a higher dimension is occurring and people don't realize it because they're so tapped into the same modality of thinking, you know. And sometimes you require to unlock bimodal perception, believe it or not, you know, through a philosophical lens. Be playful with your life because that was through the fields of playfulness I discovered my style. I discovered my voice. I realize when I'm in a playful state, my mind roars observation. You know that sentence is quite. My mind roars observation. You know? Some sentences could be powered by pride. Leonardo da Vinci, there's this quote ascribed to them. I mean, nobody knows. I mean, I don't know if it's like directly from Da Vinci or not, but it's a good quote, and I choose to believe that it is from Da Vinci. Because he says, to develop a complete mind, study the science of art, study the art of science, learn to see, realize everything connects to everything else. Just like how every word connects to the whole atmosphere of the sentence. You know, it's as if you put a bunch of random letters, no meaning. You suddenly put them in a certain pattern. Oh wow, there's meaning. You know, what a coincidence. What a what a synchronistic moment. You know, when we replace the letters, we found a word we can recognize. But why are those words given that recognition? Believe it or not, the design of language was on faith. That means you must have faith in the word, and when you say it, that others can identify it. Language is as fascinating. It like it has its advantage and disadvantage. For me, language can be an outlet for people's past to express into the future. Language is, believe it or not, like a portal in regards to memory. It is like the bridge of your memory is language. And so when you take a designer's approach to metaphysics, you wonder about the ultimate design of intelligence. And you notice the part of the story you're in, and you realize that the ant under the rock that had the dreams of, you know, typing on a computer realize that any vision can inspire, but the proper vision will enlighten. Yeah. I want to kind of, I feel like I should start maybe, like when I give these talks, I'm, I'm just touching the tip of the iceberg. Now, what is deep in the iceberg, I believe that like around 80% of it deserves to remain in silence. That means there's some truths of the world that should never be spoken, because if they are, they still won't be understood and they would cause confusion. But there are some some things of it's like your ego's exploration is the blueprint of your revelation. You become an advanced communicator when you reach that state where you're not a thought to yourself and you're not your emotion and you stand as a present moment watching. And then you start abiding, usually these synchronicities are guiding people to abide by the watcher within. And the watcher is not a shape, it's not an idea, it's not even like the word soul is poetically. And the notion is that this is you automatically abide when you notice it is the universe looking through your eyes. When you realize that there's a chance that it's not just the name of you that is looking through your eyes, it is the whole universe, and you're an energetic expression, and that the concept of a heaven and a hell, they are the social occupations of man, they're relevant in stories. If you're a character where suddenly the story stops, there is no how can I tell you? You're When the world leaves, there is no one in that boat. Your relationship becomes from. I remember I've only seen one human being say this, and believe it or not, he's Osho. And he said life is going from perfection to perfection. It's not going from imperfection to perfection. And when you reach a state where it's going from perfection to perfection, in that state, there is a subtle freedom where your incredible abilities come out. Your abilities are not powers to manipulate objects. Your abilities are realizations of your greater intelligent expression as a being. For me, just like how I hold the pen, I hold language like that. Okay? And there was a time I was following the structures and language. I was instructed in language, but after a point, I realized ideology doesn't have to have a sequence. But a character in a story does need it needs a sequence. Eventually, it will become a sequence. For me, I'm like, what are the designs of human beings contributing to? What are people's lives occurring? There was like I wanted to write a book at times, and like this book was called. I wanted to call it, what was it? Like Wasted Lives. And so I wanted to speak about how human beings are not just wasting their lives by their physical inefficiency, but they are wasting their minds. They're wasting their minds and cowering in, in belief shelters. They're not realizing that there is a life here. There is a living movement of a world that is occurring the same time as any conclusion you have of the universe. And so it was like that. It was a crazy moment when I looked at every human being I knew on this earth and I realized they were nature. They were not different from the trees. In design, yes, but in existential presence, no. We cannot go to someone and be like, yo, I exist more than you. It's like, yo, man, look at how I'm existing, Like, existentially, it's all here. As if the chessboard is here, the pieces are here, and even the chessboard game is going on. We are just the conscious piece, now wondering if we are the piece or the hand that is moving the chess piece. The cosmic game ends where the cosmos are. And enlightenment is a kind of acknowledgement that it ends where it began. And ignorance is where you feel it will end somewhere other than now. When you understand the power of now, it could shock a lot of people, but its power is that you get the same eyes you had before you learned language as a child. You are awake in a moment pre-thought, and it's like this sort of inner awakening where you have acknowledged that your whatever theory you have on the world stands now, and your attention like a flame is lit now. And when you go to sleep, it's as if they turn off the candle, and then when you wake up, the candle turns on. And then the mind asks questions. The mind tries to break out of its design. Like a caterpillar that has experienced the world of legs, marches towards the silence and stillness, similar to the yogi and the mystic back in the day, going into the solitude of nature, not being afraid to experience one's intelligence because you get only one lifetime to do it. You can play along with civilization and societies, and you can go in this game. Let me tell you what the day is. I'll be honest. What the day is a bunch of creatures using sound and objects as fashion. They are fashioning and a sort of empty recognition of themselves that they are not just what's in the space, they are the space where all phenomena is in. That is your presence. I'm not speaking to an object right now. You are an intelligent being. You know? Because if I felt if we were all just material, I would not speak. Because what is there to say to matter? What is there? What can I say to a changing world physically? All I can say is that if there is a chance, if there is a possibility, a very 0.00 whatever amount of zeros you want, 1%, that there is an aspect of you that continues beyond form, that destroys the ego's certainty in the lifetime. The laws of the world shift towards a deeper movement of this cosmic structure. And pretty much where does it go? It either goes to infinity, or it goes to emptiness, or it remembers the witness and there is the ultimate. So the point of enlightenment, is not to escape reality into a sort of ultimate perfection. It is to witness ultimate perfection, to witness like you are going through the chaos so your consciousness can get a new view on order. Okay? You're going through suffering to realize what is suffering is looking at the suffering beyond the suffering. And so for me, it's like when you're a temporary being, who can tell you what to do? You are the mover of your world. Your future vision is your only guardian angel. Once one realigns their intelligence by being able to observe language, you something interesting happens, guys, and I experience this often in my talks. As I speak, I also hear myself. And when I hear myself as I'm speaking, it's as if a part of me already knows what to say because as an audience member, a simultaneous audience member has had a reaction to what has been said. No artist can create a work of art and not realize the emotion that is occurred within. For me, a work of art is suddenly you stepping out of this like somewhere, and suddenly the sunbeam hitting your eyes, and you immediately bringing your hand to block the sunbeams from, in some sense, injuring your eye. And so in that moment, it's as if A brighter reality has expressed, but your inability to confront the whole picture has made you want to ascribe and associate to a subtler, smaller part of the picture. Be playful with reality, it changes all the time. Don't be too serious with things, but also realize that it's like for an enlightened person, the ego is a brush. The ego is the opportunity of eternity to be temporal. But for the unenlightened, the ego is still the enemy. The ego must be, found and judged and persecuted and banished. And so the way this life works is you acknowledge your design. And when you are able to confront yourself, and this doesn't mean only in the objective realm, in the subjective realm, you not only have to accept your physical body, that's easy. You have to also learn to accept all those subjective bodies which you naturally identify by. Only a dishonest ego is the issue. An honest ego is like an honorable man coming home after work, doing noble and humble work. You see, it's like that's an honest ego, and an honest ego, as many religious texts say, they're in some sense. How can I tell you? They have learned to be themselves in a changing world. Those are wise beings, and to learn to observe through ordered eyes the chaos, and through chaotic eyes the order. Learn this. We have two hemispheres of the brain. Evidently, there is a creative side and there is an analytical side. What does that mean? The analytical side is just like a blacksmith using knowledge to hammer knowledge to try to make it sharper and more perfect and more accurate. And the creative side is like that martial artist who has, after doing the most core and ultimate discipline and training and routine and method, has now realized how to use the method. You see, you learn the method of something, but how to use it comes from an experiential engagement, which is, it's kind of like if you're shy, then you feel you're not worthy. Any person who's shy, you feel you're not worthy. Now, in regards to the ability for their, like, if you wonder about the shape of communication between creatures, you see it's like we have to be selfish to be people. Because if we are not selfish, the idea of our individuality becomes transparent. But we have to, in some sense, learn of a sort of selfishness that is not cruel to the whole world. A sort of selfishness that is like a child, you know, being dramatic, but at the same time being allowed to express its intelligence. When that child goes to its parents and says, "Can I watch an hour more of TV?" The parents are like, "Yeah." That child feels like it has been granted, like a gift of kings. The permission still came from the parent, but when too much of life suffering hits you and it hits you quick, you become your own authority. And writers understand this. That's why it's easy for them to create worlds, to write worlds. When you can write a world, that means you have studied the self. And when you have studied the self, you have come to certain conclusions that just has made you as an energetic presence not bound to the behavioral limitations of your personality. Because I am a person only to another. When I am alone, the universe is only here. The moment was never different. I have gone through many parts of the world on this planet. I consider it a blessing. And I also feel it shall perhaps maybe be a duty. But at the same time, before I sleep, I have said my goodbyes to that day. I have thanked the day. I have thought about the day. I've thought about the value that day made me feel, how the day made me feel about my life. I wonder about these before I sleep, and then right before I sleep, I say, thanks, world, but tomorrow's a new journey. I don't actually say that. I just close my eyes and my awareness, the texture of it, slowly becomes no longer form bound. And so, in that moment, it's very beautiful because the universe is in your eyes, and your eyes are in your mind, and your mind is beyond the eyes that see skies. An inner awakening of an outer world is like standing on a mountaintop and seeing that meaning is purity. Truth is not a purity of just like, I'm not talking about just hygiene, but I'm saying truth is a purity of not being changed subjectively or being thrown into beliefs as an ideological construct, you know, as an ideal of self, as an I thought. You you move beyond. You move beyond your subjective eyes. You honor them. For me, my relationship with the unknown is that I am when I'm wondering about the unknown, when I have a moment where I am about to enter the depth of the moment, I let the idea of me teleport into non-existence. I don't try to hold on to change. Dear listener, you might not believe this, but we as human beings are not defined by just beliefs in one moment. We are a dynamic, changing being that is changelessly witnessing itself, as if all your birthdays you've blown the candle, but there's been the same you in there, in your eye. So for me, I find that we're reaching a point where the subjective evolution of our species is going to become interesting. And in a book I've worked on called An Evolutionary Return to Nature, um, in this book, the notion is that the subjective evolution is, it's like there's going to be a new renaissance occurring on a global scale. And when that renaissance occurs, it, it will be beyond. Yeah, I call it the multidimensional renaissance, as if we won't just be inspired creatively by the sensory. It's as if it will be an eternal renaissance, as if a renaissance done by creatures with a psychology that um, an eternal effort can advance matter. Civilizations grow upon temporary visions and eternal visions. If the pillars of the civilization are considered to be eternal, there will be fearless protection of that civilization. And the civilization has to fight in the wild of the world. We have to not be careful of just how human beings speak to one another, but we gotta also be careful of how our species is, in some sense, being influenced by the natural world. There are people living in terrible conditions, and it breaks my heart because greatness can be allowed, supplies can be sent, guidance can walk. And for me, the moments of shame were moments where I could have helped and I did not. And that was the I felt that was like a sin, you know. It was like a huge sin to my mind because I realized that I was blind to the present moment if I could not see where the value was. And the value is not in thoughts and it's not in just your beliefs. The value is in the quality of the experience of the life form in front of you. Like this life is as if like life became a form and now it's identifying the life part of itself with few forms. And those forms don't matter. As if like after the movie in the cinema you've watched it, then you don't care about the movie theater. But in that moment where the movie's starting, your seat is the most important thing you own, you know? You know, but the moment the movie finishes, you don't care about the chair. You have to direct your wisdom externally towards an efficient contribution to humanity, which occurs through your greater effort. It's like, guys, this was my effort for now. These Mr. Within talks. If I find something better I can do, I will do that. You know, but I will tell you, for me, the effort of where why I feel my energy exists is just to be this part of evolution, just to be alive, as if no further explanation needed. But another part of me sees also the potential of this life to direct and concentrate its existential attention towards its ultimate experience. It's as if you can imagine that if sensory, like what we consider to be sensory perception, if the sensory perception was also like a temporary phenomena, we would see after the temporary, suddenly you have something beyond it. Suddenly, the caterpillar that trusted the silence and stillness and the ability to go confront his like true and lone presence. When the silence and stillness become intelligence for you, you will have already learned from the hand that has let go of ignorance. You attain what I call not, you don't, it's not like you become a master of your moment, but you become a moment where the student and the master are gazing upon a higher teaching. You find humility in the biggest sense of your ego and in the weakest sense of your ego. You allow the strength of existence to inspire you. For me, it's like when I'm awake in the day and I see things occur, I'm like, okay, let's see how long this show goes on. And when the show ends, too many beginnings have been already inspired to be let go. One lifetime echoes into many lifetimes. You can say it moves exponentially. You can say that consciousness is not bound to form, and form is not bound to consciousness, for they are the same. There are two sides of the coin, but there's one coin. There's a subjective reality and objective reality, but there's one moment. And this one moment seems to be present beyond its speculation. So, a part of seeking for truth is you go seek it, and you're at first seeking it through language. And then, once you seek it through language, you reach a certain interesting and fascinating views on it. It's as if you find the greatest artwork. And then, after you look at that, you wonder and you see of all that hasn't been done yet. And then you return. You return not to the world, you return to a memory. You return to a memory from a present that has not been, that in some sense has not failed. Believe it or not, we're all living to die, and we're also dying to live. Study your intelligence. You will use tools from others until you figure out your own way of navigation. Then you will realize the difference between the problem and the solution. You don't identify with either, yet you maneuver between. You become the wind between the branches of time. A formless presence, felt but not seen. A sight that has learned to accept its moment and then see it. See that you are seeing right now. Be aware that you're hearing how you're hearing. Realize that you have a relationship with this biological expression of yours. And you also have a relationship with the subjectivity that inspires this biological evolution. And our evolution, the moment language design was the survival of the greatest thoughts, pretty much. That evolution of the mind, the theory of an inner evolution, of how a relationship between Purusha and Prakriti is keeping it all. The universe could be simpler than we think, simpler than, you know, can be put into thought. It can be simpler than thought. That's the beauty of the moment. It is a detachment from a manner or for a certain format, as if, like, it's the same animalistic violence you see, the same like instinctual just reaction. You are having that on a subtler subconscious level, and that's why you require beliefs. But when you come and sit with nature, your breath and heartbeat become your teacher. Your breath and heartbeat teach you of your presence. And you see the ability of life to show itself to itself. As Rumi says, out beyond ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there is a place I will meet you there. And when the soul sits on that grass, the world is too full to talk about. You will tap into a state where it's like no longer the idea of enlightenment is going to be considered. You're just going to see the amount of eternal vision accessible to a temporary creature, the amount of ways that infinity can, in some sense, be seen in the finite, in the finite. Only a temporary being cares and can see the eternal. because how the it's like imagine like rather than how it's like a temporary being seeing eternity in a temporary world, you see, or it's an eternal being seeing the temporal in an eternal reality. A bird has two wings to fly, yet it is not only its wings, it is the whole moment that's guiding itself. And I'll say this last thing: when there's an inner awakening of an outer world, then comes a sort of responsibility to have the outer world inspire inner worlds, to awaken inner realities. That means DNA is a torch nature is passing on to the next generations. And believe it or not, language is making DNA see itself differently. Behind your eyes, who can see that the universe is seeing? Henry David Thoreau says it is not what you see that matters. It is not what you're looking at that matters, it is what you see. That's the thing I'm trying to communicate here. Anyways, I hope this talk has served you. Much blessings and namaste.